Welcome to Mighty Married Moms. Join us at our kitchen table twice a week as the Mighty Married Moms, Debbie, Linda, Wendy, invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy, building marriages with soul-satisfying connection, raising happy, healthy, successful kids. Conversations with Mighty Married Moms will bring you closer to the life you really want.
Episode 37.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mighty Married Moms. We are very happy today to be talking with Susie Miller. And Susie Miller is internationally known as the Better Relationship Coach. She's an author, speaker, and coach dedicated to helping you create better relationships in 30 days. Yep, you heard me right, 30 days. So don't settle for mediocre ones. As a therapist actually turned coach, she equips people to reduce stress, improve communication, increase intimacy. Susie's the author of a new book about to be launched pretty soon called Listen, Learn, Love, How to Dramatically Improve Your Relationships in 30 Days or Less. Susie's a cancer survivor, but she's also known as a possibilitarian. Susie's been married to John for 32 years, and they have 3 adult children. Susie, we're very excited to hear from you today, and I want to make sure that everybody knows who you're talking to. You're talking to Linda Tighe from All Well Break Loose.
Hi.
Yep. And you're talking to Debbie Owen from YouCanRaiseGreatKids.com.
Yep. Hi, Debbie.
And me, Wendy Williams. I'm from ConnectAgain.org. I'm a relationship education educator. And Debbie works with parents, and Linda works with health folks. So we're glad to have you here at Mighty Married Moms.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here and love what you're doing with Mighty Married Moms, because those 3 words, I was like, wow, you've got a power-packed trio there.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of good feedback, and so we just encourage anybody who's listening today to make sure to subscribe in iTunes before you forget. So I would love to hear your transition. It says that you were a therapist turned coach. Can you give us a kind of like a 60-second a bird's eye view of your travels?
Sure. I was a mom first, a mighty married mom, and then my kids got a little older, and I went to grad school to become a therapist. And a lot of people ask you how you get into that field, and I tell people you usually get into that field because somebody in that field helped you along the way.
Right.
And so I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to work with marriage and family because a marriage and family therapist had helped me in a really profound way that, solidified my life direction. So I went to grad school, loved my work with marriage and family, got to work with some pretty, significant, issues, helped a lot of women find their voice and heal from some abuse. And it was really a rich time for me. And it took a real toll on my health because I wasn't good at compartmentalizing. So the stress began to wear down my health. And so I was juggling, and you kind of find like, okay, my kids are getting the worst of me sometimes because my clients are getting the best of me. Mm. And at one point when I got cancer, my doctor looked at me and said, are you open to a career change? Mm-hmm. And that's basically when coaching was coming up. And I began to look into coaching and made the switch because it was better for my health, better for my kids and my family, but also it allowed me to work with more people. It allowed me to not be geographically bound. It allowed me to be on Skype, on video. And I also got to work with people who might not ever go to therapy. They might not need major counseling, but they needed some tweaking. And that was really fun for me because you have couples who come in and they go, we love each other, but we can't stand to be in the same room. Or we're close, our teenagers are driving us crazy and we fight more than we ever did, but I can't imagine my life without him. Well, that's tweaking. That's not major therapy. Right. And so I get to work with couples who just need some help. Yeah. And, or women who just need some help feeling better about themselves, and connecting with themselves and their kids. And so I love the coaching profession. It's been a ball to be part of. And so that was my transition.
Great. Yeah. One of the things that we talked a bit about before we actually got the camera rolling here was the fact that you said there are a lot of people who are very open to coaching that are not necessarily open to being therapized.
I love that word.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Think about it. We have fitness coaches, health coaches. I would advertise I'm going to a health coach, but you don't say, I'm going to a therapist. That implies something's wrong.
Correct.
Versus a coaching implies I want to improve. I want to become my best self. Yeah. And so I find that people will go to coaching because it's already in their vernacular. They have fitness coaches, writing coaches, tutors. Right. So I love that part of coaching.
Yeah, exactly. And the way I kind of word it is an old book title called Going from Good to Great. Maybe you're familiar with it. But
with Jim Rohn. Yeah, I love that book.
massively wrong. And I come from a background in healthcare. I used to be a cancer nurse many years ago.
I love my cancer nurses.
Yeah, I know. They really are the backbone. But we digress.
Yes.
I want to tell you that I feel really blessed that you were able to forward an advanced copy of your book to us. And I know it's coming out.
I loved. It was great.
Oh my
Thank
gosh,
you.
Yeah.
so wise. The wisdom just pours off the pages.
Yeah.
And let me just read you a quote that really struck me.
Okay.
While relationships are the most important things in our lives, they're usually the hardest. They bring us joy, delight, and purpose, but also pain, sorrow, confusion, grief, frustration, and loneliness. We want great relationships. We would even settle for good ones. But the work and the effort to create and sustain them seems daunting. So we punt. We pretend we aren't lonely and settle for fair to middling relationships, wondering, is this all there is? And that just jumped off the page for me. That really summarizes beautifully. And if I was this sort of a person, I would rip this off and put it on my own website. But I won't.
You can if you quote me.
I will quote you.
And put a link to my book. I would love that.
Okay, great. Okay. You got it. But it really speaks to the heart of, there is this unspoken heartache that a lot of us walk around with going, is this it? I have that with members like my sisters, or, like, gee, we're in our 50s and 60s now. Don't you think we could have put that fight to bed?
Yes.
That we had when we were 10, but, so there's always like, can't we do better? And so you unpack that a little bit about that notion of punting and settling for middling when we could be going from good to great.
Sure. First of all, thank you for your kind words about my book. I'm thrilled that it was meaningful and a blessing to you. And you just touched on something, like when you talked about your sisters, that really I want to bring in, because the book is a broad brushstroke of skills that apply to all relationships. And you can take them, and in the book I try to give examples of sisters, of daughters, of colleagues, of husband and wife, and spouses and partners, so that you can see how all these things apply. So I really appreciate that, because I think you're right. We don't grow up thinking, I'm going to settle for average. I hope my prince is just okay.
Yeah,
I hope my sisters and I have a stepsister relationship. No, we grew up thinking we're going to be best buddies. We're going to live together. All those things. And then reality hits. And I think there's something about that young innocence that's so important to have, because if we really knew how hard it would be, we'd never risk.
Right.
So that's the first thing, I don't think people would walk down the aisle or have children if they thought, I know this is going to be tough,
Yeah.
I think that is one of those times that ignorance is bliss is absolute truth.
Right.
But in terms of, I think what happens is then life happens, and there's lots of parts of life. There's just regular work, life, laundry, dogs, schoolwork, permission slips, all that stuff of life, I call it.
Permission slips.
Oh my gosh, filling out all those permission slips. Yes.
That stuff of life that just takes our time, our energy. And so you begin to see, like, if you think about a vase, slowly it's draining, and you get to this point where you're like, okay, relationships, and there's so much that presses in that we just go, well, it's good enough. I'd love to have a deeper conversation with my sister or my husband or my kid, but I don't have time. And you probably understand this in your 50s. I can't believe you're on your 50s. You look fabulous, but
Aren't we though?
Don't you find that I'm 50 as well? Don't you find that there's this reality of time all of a sudden? All of a sudden, I'll do it later has doesn't kind of compute anymore.
Okay, can I just say something?
Sure.
We're almost on May 1.
As
we're recording this.
Yeah.
As we're recording this, it's almost May 1. I put my Christmas tree away last week, didn't I? I can't, and that, literally that's not true. I did put it away in December, if not early January, but it feels like a minute and a half ago. Right. I cannot believe that we're halfway through 2015.
Right. And I think that's a piece of why I felt it so important to name the truth in my book. The truth is we're wired for relationships. I think relationships are the oxygen of our souls.
Yes.
So we need to breathe and we need to have relationships. And so if we pretend that they're not good, we kind of live in that malaise, and we don't really engage. And we get to a point where we pause long enough to turn off the TV, not use our smartphone, those wee hours in the morning, and we realize we're not happy, we feel disconnected, we're lonely, and we don't know what to do. And in those moments, it feels like the fix is so big that I'll punt. I can't do anything about it. I'll settle. And what I want to tell people is the fix isn't that big. You know, you can make tweaks that can really make a difference.
I agree with you 100%.
So Susie, this is Debbie. Tell us a little bit. Your book is called Listen, Learn, Love, and I read it, and it's about all different kinds of relationships as you talk about. Can you give us just a quick rundown on each of those three areas?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. The Listen, Learn, Love are 3 skills that they sound rather obvious. You know,
Right.
Well, of course we listen, and of course we, learn about people and we love them. But as I begin to unpack them and realize that they are the foundation of everything I do with people and all of my coaching, speaking, writing. So listening, I think we listen well. I don't think anybody would raise their hand to go, no, I don't listen.
Right.
I think we go, oh, no, I'm a good listener, right? But then when I unpack the skill, I talk about when you're listening to somebody, are you thinking about what you're going to say next?
Of course.
Or are you really paying attention to what they're saying?
What did you just say?
Just kidding.
I have a saying in the book where I talk about listening with your eyes, your ears, and your heart. And we unpack what that means. You know, a lot of times I remember saying to my little kids, listen to me with your eyes. Because if I had their attention with their eyes, I knew I at least had access to their brain.
Debbie talks about that all the time as a parenting coach, that connection. She's really good at that, yeah.
Yes, that's so great. And for all the people who listen to Debbie, write that down. Because if you can do that with your kids, you'll change your relationship with them. I love that you teach that, Debbie.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I talk about that. I talk about another big piece of listening. I'll give you a big hint for your audience. This is one of my secret skills, is a lot of times when we listen, we want to fix it. So we don't clarify and validate. One of the stories I talk about is how my son came home and he said, I don't have any friends. And what's a mom's natural response when our kids
Of course
said,
you do.
right, which I said, and that just shut down the conversation. I started, because my feeling was, I don't want you to feel bad.
Right.
Yes.
And in that moment, I totally didn't listen to his feeling.
Right.
Which was, I'm feeling like I don't have friends. So to clarify and validate, to go, gosh, Zach, why do you feel that way? What happened? And then when he tells the story about how somebody was mean, you can validate and go, I can see how you feel that way. So I think it's about how we listen a little bit. So those are 2 of the many things I unpack in the book with listen. Learn is really one of my favorite skills because it's something that I think makes a huge difference in relationships that's not obvious. Like listen and love, people talk about.
Right.
But I have this gal from the South who, when she got married, she said, I just got to learn them. I said, what? I
like that.
I just got to learn them. And I said, she goes, what's that mean? She said, I've got to learn him. I go, oh, learn him.
Does that educate him?
Yeah, learn him. Well, and that's what people thought. But what she meant was, I need to learn about him. His moods, his inflections, his needs, his ups, his downs, this was a second marriage, so there was a lot of, they were older coming into it, so there was a lot of development already happening. Yeah. As I began to think about that, I thought, wow, what if we looked at the relationships in our lives and the people and really learned them, not just their favorite candy, but learned that when they get, a shoe size, it's moms, I know, we know all this stuff about our kids. But I began to pause and I'll use the example of our middle daughter. She's not like me at all in terms of verbal. She's a very internal processor. And learning her for me meant I had to learn the way she liked to communicate versus the way I wanted her to communicate, Or sometimes she would come down and she'd just plop in the room. It was when she was in her teens and 20s. And to me, I'd be busy. But that was her signal of, I want to tell you something. So please stop and ask me and then stay long enough for me to get to it, where I'm like, hey, I got to talk about something. Let's get to it, So learning them is really learning the underneath about them and learning their hopes, their dreams, and it really is a way that we can connect at a deeper level.
Yep.
That's a really fun skill that I think, and I talk in the book about tips to actually do that and then what it isn't, because I think sometimes we learn people and go, here's what I'd like to change about you.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the
I learned this about you and I don't like it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I did a seminar once called Everybody Hurts, and it was for teens and parents. And I walked out of it as the teacher of the parents about how to connect with their teens, realizing that I wasn't listening well to my daughter. And so it was one of those moments where, the pot saying, are you the pot or the kettle?
Right. Yeah.
Kettle, yeah.
Yeah.
And then love, I think with love, we talk about love all the time. I love my husband, and I love shoes, and I love dark chocolate,
Yes.
And so I talked about, the different kinds of love, and we don't have but one word in the English language. Other languages have lots of words. Right. And I came up to this point of really the difference in good relationships is what I call love well.
Yeah, and I love that.
It is loving sacrificially. It is loving. I imagine you talk about parenting well.
Yes.
Yeah, that idea of it's going beyond the obvious, and usually it requires us to put our needs or our desires second. You know, I think, you know, loving well with a kid would be saying, no, you can't do that, knowing that they're going to be really mad at you. And you might get the, you ruined my life, Mom, conversation, and you're going to not feel as good, but you're loving them well because it's the right thing to do.
Right. Correct.
You know, with my clients, I talk a lot about what I say, tough love. Like, no client has ever said to me, gosh, thanks for saying that I'm a really bad listener to my wife. You know, usually they come up with, I didn't, you know, but later they'll come back and go, thanks for having the courage to say that to me. You know, or I'm really glad that you know, loved me in a tough love way, and not a mean way, but a way that speaks the truth. So those are my two kind of ways you love well. And again, I unpack them in the book. But so those three skills really become far richer than just, oh yeah, I listen, you know.
Exactly.
Does that help?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
I know. We're all resonating over here. No,
I'm so glad.
That really makes good sense. Now, the other half of the title of the book is this 30-day piece.
I was going to ask you. Let's
Yeah.
go into that a little bit more.
I mean,
You know, I'm so with you, and I'm going to be totally transparent and tell you that when my editor took my title, How to Improve Your Relationships Fast, and reworked it to that, I really had to sit with it.
Yeah.
And I had to sit with it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was like, okay, that feels a little salesy. And number two, is that really true?
But you know what? It is true. If you do the tips that you outline in the book, you will see a difference in 30 days.
Well, thank you. And let me give you, I'm so glad you said that, not me. So I came home and I thought about my clients, and I came up with a couple examples. Usually when I work with clients, we do something in the beginning, and there's a weekly conversation. And I thought by the end of the first 3 to 4 weeks, they're really feeling better. Yeah. Things have changed. So yes, they improve. Are they perfect? Well, no relationship's ever perfect. Are they problem-free? No. But have they improved significantly? Absolutely. Yep. And the example that I came up with for my own life, because if it's going to be on my book, I wanted to feel good about it, is I have this sand timer in my office. And you know how sometimes with a sand timer, the grains get stuck?
Yep.
And then if you shake it, lots go through?
Yeah.
That was really the example for me. I think with good relationships, especially marriage or kids, really intimate ones, it doesn't take much for us to shake up those sands and
dislodge that one little bit that's
just
getting in the way.
That's a great way. We dislodge that one thing, and it's almost like a domino effect. Lots of things get better. You know, so the time that I looked at my son, the next time he came to me and said, I don't feel like I have friends, or I feel like I'm an outsider, which was really odd for a popular kid. And I listened well. He then gave me a whole lot more information, and our relationship improved.
Sure. Interesting.
So I really believe it's possible, and I really appreciate you saying that you've actually seen that, because I do think that little things can make a huge difference. And I will say this. I just recently worked with a client, and I talked about the fact that just like, have you heard of P90X or the 21-day fix, their workouts, and they talk about how many rounds you went through to get there.
Yep.
Depending on how much fitness you needed, you might have had to do the round 3 or 4 times.
Right.
So depending on the tweaks you need, you might need 3 or 4 rounds of 30 days.
Right.
You will see improvement in the first 30 days.
Right.
Or less. Yeah.
Or less. That's right.
Well, and I said the or less because I had a client come to me. We Skyped recently, and he said to me, he said, I tried that thing you said, Susie, about my wife. I didn't fix it. And I said, okay, tell me more about that. And she was, and she hugged me. We're so connected. So he literally called me the next day, and he goes, it works.
Yeah.
See, it's like 24 hours, verified proof.
Yeah. Right. One of the things, just funny that you said that, because I had a client call me last week and give me an update. He said, just talking to you for a half hour yesterday and a half hour today, my anxiety level is so much lower. So it prompted me to think maybe a direction that I could take in my own my own business. Say, interpreting women speak for a man.
That's awesome. That's so great. That is so great.
Because this guy was just like, oh my goodness, is that what she meant? Is that what she was saying? Is that where she was going with that?
My husband has this joke where he says he periodically has to turn on his male to female translator.
I just love that. I actually might borrow that, because people have asked me why I have such a heavy men clientele at sometimes. I mean, women come in first, And that's, then they'll drag their husbands in, and the men will say, you get it. Like, you're not going to, nail me to the wall. You're not going to gang up on me. You help me understand her, and you help her understand me. I love that, male to female translator, because we really do speak different languages.
We do. Yep. And that's the beauty of the relationship, and that's the
Yeah. So I do like that. I think a lot of times when we don't feel like we're getting heard by our spouse, and we'll stick with spouse because you're doing Mighty Married Moms, we tend to bury it, or we don't tend to open up. We tend to just forget it. And it builds up either like a big mound under the carpet, or what I use is in the book is I talk about holding a beach ball underwater. Have you ever tried to hold a beach ball underwater? Yeah. Right, it pops up somewhere. Right, we might be mad at or frustrated with our husband, and we snap at our kid, Yeah. And so I'm a really big proponent of learning to express ourselves in positive, constructive ways.
Right. Yeah, totally. That's like really good food and nourishment for a relationship, is to learn how to speak constructively rather than reactively or without much thinking. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we had talked about in preparation for this interview also was helping people find some balance in their lives, so that the stress, the outer stresses of the world don't impact what's going on, overly adversely impact the relationships that you have. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Sure, I would love to. I gave up on the word balance about 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, more people are.
I'll tell you why. And the word that came in a conversation with a friend was the word harmony.
Yes, that's the word I've heard. Yep.
It gave me rest, because I used to be a little bit of a geek and played in the orchestra. I like to tell my kids I was cool in high school. And I remember in the orchestra, and if you've ever heard a piece of music, there's times when, the drums are really loud, the horns are really loud, the strings are really loud. And if you took that section, it would look like it was all one. But if you step back, you have a beautiful harmony of music. If you tried to make them all the same all the time and static and balanced, you wouldn't have a lovely piece of music.
No.
I think for women, when I first heard that with a friend and we talked about it and kind of unpacked it, because I can do harmony. It's kind of like, and I think this is, most of your moms will get this, there's a zillion things on our plate, and we can't be 110% with all of them at the same time. We try.
Yeah, we do.
And then we blow it, and then we beat ourselves up, and then we,
yes,
more stuff.
Yes.
So I think the concept of harmony is I have two big principles of that. The first one is what are the only things I can do? And this is part of my profit method you asked me about, prioritize. As women, we try to do it all, and we forget that we don't have what it takes to do it all, in terms of, if we step back and go, do I really want to be that tired? Or if I do it all here, it's going to cost me here. Right. We forget that. I was thinking with a client the other day about, if you say yes to this job now, the stress it will reduce may be worth taking the lower salary and having the guarantee than waiting, so that kind of juggling.
Right.
So it's that idea of, prioritizing. And I say to my clients all the time, what are the things that only you can do? Finish this sentence. Only I can be his wife, their mom.
Okay.
For each of you in your business, you can come up with one thing that only you can do.
Right.
Right. And when you have those clear, it makes it much more clear what you have to delegate.
Right.
I like that. That's good.
If you don't do that, it feels like you need to be doing almost everything.
Right. I've heard that expressed in the term of a jar with the big rocks and the little rocks.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That concept, like just put the big rocks in and then the little rocks will fit around.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
But
so for me, I'm a sticky new girl. Right. And you have to remember what the big rocks are. So I can remember the sentence of only I can be.
Right.
So when an opportunity comes in, or an offer, or a new job option, or something on my plate, a volunteer option for a mom, is this going to take away from the only I can be's? Because if I put those on my plate, I only have this much left.
Right.
That's one way I talk about finding harmony. So, you can't be a great drum player, flute player, cello player. You got to pick.
Yeah, that's true. Got to pick
and
one.
Then the second piece I talk about is, you can't be 110% at all things all the time, but you can be 110% at one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so, turning off, one of the things I do, and I'll confess here, is for me to spend time with my husband in the evening, my phone has to be in the other room.
Yeah. Yes.
Because either we'll be watching a show and I won't be as interested, and then I'll go, wait, can you replay that? And he'll be so mad.
Right.
Yeah. And I have to move it out of the room because I can't be 110%. My ADD takes over and I'm,
Right.
So I think going, am I 100% present to my kids? Yeah. When my kids would come home after school, I wouldn't be on the phone and hang out with them. Did I want to be sure? Was it hard? Absolutely. But if I would sit with them and just hang out and maybe even read a magazine while they were doing their homework, they felt like I was present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that make sense? And so it was willing to section off my life.
Right.
So
You're right. Only you can be that, no other woman walking in, sitting with them, reading a magazine will do.
But did it feel like a waste of time when there was laundry and dinner and dishes?
Sure.
But that theory made me think this matters. And what's really funny is our daughter, who's in her late 20s, mentioned the other day that she had told one of the moms of her kids, she's a teacher, you might want to think about when your kid comes home, just sitting down with them while they're doing their homework, even if it has to read a magazine. And I cracked up and I thought, who knew?
Yeah.
She
recognized it.
Yeah.
She saw it. And if I had been doing the dishes in the same room, she probably wouldn't have felt like I was with her.
Right.
But her love language was quantity time.
Yeah.
Was just be with me, hang out with me versus
how many times have we spoken with somebody as Mighty Married Moms and they invoke that book, The 5 Love Languages?
Well, you talk about it in your book too.
I do. I wish I wrote it. I'm a little jealous.
I know, right? Do you know him? Can we get him on our show?
I don't know him. If I did, I do quote him. I think it's one of the most articulate, quick ways to understand that we don't speak the same language.
Right, and it really feeds in well with your number one step, listen.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you listen to the things that they're already telling you.
Or even learning them, I think. That's
learning them. True. That's right.
It's learn them. And I use that example because I'm a words girl, so I'll tell my husband I love him, he's wonderful. He's not a words guy. So he doesn't, he's the one of the guys, I love you, and I'll tell you if I change my mind. Yeah. But he takes care of everything. Yeah. And a big joke in our home is I would say to him, I love you, you're handsome. He goes, great. Can you put the business receipts on my desk? Yeah. Because I really need, that would show me you love me. Or it's so funny, even this morning he said, did you change the credit card on our Amazon account? And I was like, no, I haven't got to it yet. And he was like, that would mean more to him than my telling him he was wonderful. Yeah. And learning that, so today it's on my list to get it done. Right. Because he will feel loved. I'm
so encouraged because you've been married to him for 32 years and you're still trying to figure it out. I'm so excited.
I'm still trying to figure it out. Yes.
Hope to keep learning and getting better at being.
Well, and that goes back to your first question of that loneliness, that will it get better? 32 years later, we're still working on connecting. We're still figuring things out. Now, we have a ball sometimes, and we don't have the same conflicts as when we were young, but we're still in process. Yeah, it's not, it's not all happily ever after. It's kind of what I say, mostly happily ever after. Right. Whereas he would say, sometimes happily ever after. We had sometimes happily ever after years, and we're really honest about that as a married couple. People go, wow, 32 years. And he'll go, and some of them were really fun.
Yeah.
And some of them were really hard. And I had to really wrap my mind around that because it felt like a failure versus really being able to say to people, some of them were really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Reality.
Yep.
Reality.
Yeah. If you're growing and you're working on growing together, it's a constant process.
It is. And don't you think we as women want to get it right?
And if it wasn't, we would be bored out of our minds.
Right? That's true. That is true. How do we remind ourselves of that when we think the fact that we haven't arrived means we failed?
Yeah. Right.
Like, what do you think? How do you?
I just wake up every day and I say, what can I do to be a better person today? And that means a better friend, a better mom, a better wife. Every single day I wake up and say, what can I do today? That's going to
feed somebody's soul.
Yeah. How can I take care of somebody else? How can I give? What can I share? How can I be better today? Yeah. And
I like that. Now, let me ask you a question that, would be interesting to just chat about. I think as women, we do that. How do you help women then take time to feed their own soul?
Oh, that's so important. And I mean, part of answering that question to myself is, what do I need to do for myself?
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I do think we as women neglect ourselves,
Definitely.
And I think that impacts our relationships. We get tired, we don't take care of ourselves physically, so who feels like the sexy wife? Or we run ourselves down and we don't take care of ourselves, and that affects our relationships. But we don't think about that until it's, well into the mess.
Yeah, part of being a better person is I know I need my exercise. I know I need to spend a little bit of time in prayer and meditation, and I know I need to, connect. I need to eat well. I need to connect with my husband, who's the only home. Thank you very much right now.
and connect with you.
Well, and it's interesting. In that entrepreneurial profit method, I talk about that. I spoke at a women's event, and I asked, one of my letters is restore and rejuvenate. And I asked how many women had spent time in self-care just that week, had done something for themselves.
Yeah.
I should stop being surprised at how many women didn't.
Wow.
You know, and I think
how few or how many?
How few
Yeah.
really took the time for themselves
Yeah.
because there was so much on their plate.
Yep. I'll tell you one method that I've used with counseling others as a coach and as a friend is to say to somebody, a woman, like if you and I were talking and you were running ragged and you were exhausted or whatever, I would say, if your daughter, your middle daughter came to you and she said, oh, I'm running ragged, I'm this, I'm that, what would you want for her? You'd say, please stop. Take a bubble bath. I think you need to go visit your friend for the weekend. I think you need to settle down and do the dogs. Whatever you would counsel your daughter, your sister, your best friend, your mom to do, turn it around.
Yeah, look in the mirror.
Don't you hate when you realize that?
Yeah, I do hate when I realize that, but I find it a very effective tool.
It is the to
I
me.
can come up with that list very quickly for somebody else. So
It is the most effective way to get me to stop.
yeah.
It is the most effective way, and I'll tell my client, I love that you do that. I'll say, I will play any, that's my trump card. Because why would we treat ourselves any worse? So thank you for that reminder. I haven't done that in a while, and with the book launch coming up, I need to remember that.
You do. Well, we're very excited that your book is coming out. We're very happy to be a part of this. And we'll link to it, and we'll hope that you'll enjoy sharing your conversation with the Mighty Married Moms on your website as well.
I will. Let me tell you a little thing for your listeners. The book launches May 12th, which, like you said, is, it's 12 days from today. If they go to listenlearnlovebook.com, anytime between now and that week of the 17th, that launch week, I have over $250 in bonuses.
Oh my gosh.
There's a workbook, there's the audio version, there's a webinar, and they just sign up for it there. There's a little place for the receipt. It's at all the major booksellers. And so they can go there and then connect with me that way.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really, we could go on and on.
Yeah, we hate to stop.
I know, me too. And I'm launching a podcast soon, and I'm definitely going to have you as a guest because this is exactly what my listeners need to hear.
Perfect.
Oh,
We'll be either
you.
all three of us at the same time or one at a time.
Yeah.
Your choice.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me.
SusieMiller.com.
Mm-hmm.
And besides the book, is there any other projects that you're working on, or SusieMiller.com and listenlearnlove.com?
Listenlearnlovebook.com.
Yep.
And
Is the book, and then SusieMiller.com is where they can find out about everything else I'm doing or offering in terms of coaching or working with me, or some of my other resources that are free. I have a whole relationship toolbox they can download for free if they go to SusieMiller.com.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again.
so much.
And we'll look forward to another time coming back, and
Terrific. My pleasure.
we'll definitely keep connected. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
You've really
Susie.
given our listeners a lot to go on.
Thank you so
Susie.
much for having me.
Yeah.
You are beautiful from the inside out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And mightymarriedmoms.com is where you can find more about us and our podcast. And please subscribe on iTunes and give us a rating and a review. We would be grateful and appreciative. And plus, we need to get this out in the world, right? So thanks very much. What's
Thank
that?
you. Nope, that's great.
Oh,
Thank you,
okay,
everybody.
great. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Mighty Married Moms. Tune in twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays to meet fascinating and inspiring guests who will help you create the life you've always wanted.
You can find these episodes and special gifts just for you at mightymarriedmoms.com, as well as a link to our Facebook community.
Where we continue the conversation around the kitchen table. Please also help share the love by leaving a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.